Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I am discussing Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimensions. I was so excited to watch this movie, and my goodness, was it a trip watching this movie. And to give you an update on my Yu-Gi-Oh! Watch, which if you listen to episode 120, I first divulged that I was watching Yu-Gi-Oh! For the first time, even though I had watched it years ago as a kid, but only a handful of episodes from the first season, and then I kind of lost interest. So anyway, the reason I started watching again, though, was because of Little Karibo. Shout out to him, the OG Abridging King, because he was doing a stream where he was editing the latest episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series. Go watch that if you haven't, episode 83. It's fantastic. And talking about the characters in the show and mentioning also this movie. And then I was like, I think I want to watch the show now. Let me actually watch the anime. So I started with season 3 because on Netflix they only had season 1 and 3, but then later I found out that all the episodes are available on Hulu. But anyway, I started with season 3, then I went back and watched season 1, then I watched season 2, and now I'm on season 4. So I haven't seen all of the series, but I've seen the vast majority of it. And I gotta say, I just love these characters, even with all of the cheesiness that comes along with it, even with all of the repetition of repeating what the cards do. What does Pot of Greed do? Who the hell knows? But probably I should have waited to watch the entire thing, but it's okay. Either way, I wouldn't fully understand what the hell was going on at times, which is expected of watching Yu-Gi-Oh!, you know? So, going into this movie, though, I knew some things about it, namely that it was about Kaiba wanting to duel the Pharaoh, just being obsessed with that, wanting to put the Millennium Puzzle back together so he can duel Atem. This movie, though, I have to say that I kind of have mixed feelings on it, to be honest, because the ending just left me wanting more. I feel kind of frustrated right now. It wasn't enough for me, but it was visually stunning, though. And I'm gonna be honest, the first half of it, I was straight up just distracted by Kaiba's abs. I mean, that reminds me too. So in February, they did a virtual Seto Kaiba challenge on the official Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. You could just go watch the playback of the streams. There were 2 days of it. The first day was people dueling the mini bosses so that they had the chance to duel virtual Seto Kaiba on day 2. And Eric Stewart was voicing Kaiba in real time, just reacting to the duels. And Little Karibo actually dueled on the first day against Pro ZD, but he didn't win. But it was just fantastic. And so where I'm going with this, though, is that everyone in the chat was thirsty for Kaiba. Everyone was saying hashtag date Kaiba, hashtag Seto Kaiba dating sim 2021. So I'm glad that we collectively, as a fan base, are thirsty for Kaiba. Yes to Seto Kaiba dating sim. And I have to bring up just one of Kaiba's many glorious insults during that stream, which if you saw the live Twitch stream, you already know. But again, if you're interested, you can go back and watch it on YouTube. But during Little Karibo's duel, and Little Karibo also, as a side note, he has his own VTuber of Marek, so he's in character the whole time as Marek, and he plays Duel Links, so it's a lot of fun too. You can check those out too. But so during his duel with Pro ZD, not even a minute into the duel, Kaiba says, "This duel is like watching grass grow. Actually, grass growing is much more exciting." VTuber Kaiba was just amazing, standing there all menacingly. Good God, I can't get enough of Kaiba. I just can't. Jesus. He clearly has so much fun with this role, Eric Stewart, so I appreciate that. I appreciate that he knows how much the fan base loves Kaiba. What a character, Seto Kaiba. In this movie, though, he's almost too intense and intimidating and non-feeling and hyper-focused and obsessive and driven, and at least in the series, there are moments very slightly here and there, like the tender moments between him and Mokuba. In this movie, it just wasn't really any of that. But even with Kaiba's unrelenting intensity in this movie, which of course is part of his character in general, but all the more amplified in this movie, that despite that, I did also appreciate the bits of humor here and there. And one part that comes to mind is when they're talking about the Millennium Puzzle, and Mokuba says, "You know, it took Yugi 8 years to solve it, right?" And Kaiba says, "That's because Yugi is a simple-minded child." Again with the savage burns. So funny. And really, to me, that is the most interesting stuff with this movie. The fact that he is just so obsessed with wanting to defeat Atem, that nothing will stop him just to rebuild that Millennium Puzzle. And it is interesting to see them really acknowledge Atem as his own person, because we don't really see that throughout the show, at least from what I've seen of the show. I don't know if, I guess in season 5 they finally realized, because then obviously I know how it ends with the two of them dueling, Yugi and Atem, but that was cool to me. And then we have Aigami, our main villain, whose real name is Diva. I do also find it intriguing how this movie explores some interesting philosophical things, to be honest, except only touching on those themes. For me, truly, the pacing felt a bit off because honestly, I guess I'm so accustomed to the kind of almost excruciatingly long pacing that we see in the series of dragging out each and every card game for 3+ episodes more often than not. So in this movie, it was just kind of mini arcs of each duel, and Joey in that weird again, like the virtual world type thing, whatever, the Plana, but that was interesting. And the whole thing with Aigami, with his sister, saying, oh, he's lost his way, but people who lose their way can find it again. That was interesting to me. And how you can't find peace through hatred. Just certain things like that I found interesting that, again, were only touched upon, but I just think interesting things that could have been explored. I guess what I'm trying to say is I wish this could have been a whole new season of the show rather than a movie, because it wasn't enough for me, personally. But it was still very much enjoyable, that being said. So I really like Yugi's glow up in this movie too. I knew about that too going into this because I've seen images, so I knew Yugi, how he's grown physically and emotionally, so to speak, because now he's no longer with the Pharaoh. But of course their bond is never broken. So all of the imagery in this movie, the animation is gorgeous, and all of the lighting, the glows in the characters' eyes, really, really beautiful. And with the original voice cast, that's always wonderful. And on a separate note, I love Mokuba in this movie. Mokuba is so utterly adorable in the show, my goodness. In this movie, he's like a little mini badass business mogul Mokuba. Slightly older Mokuba too, because I know this movie takes place 6 months after the events of the manga, so it's in the manga universe rather than the anime. Even though I personally wouldn't even know the difference between the two. Although I do know the manga is much darker and more violent compared to the anime, and especially the English dub of the anime, which did a lot of censoring of the original Japanese version. But now we have Mokuba very much able to defend and handle himself. When he was on that case, when they had the puzzle in it, he just goes flying up on the jet, and then Aigami trying to get a piece, and then Mokuba just headbutts him. That was pretty badass. Little Mokuba, good for him. That's great. Him on his cell phone and in his suit, that was adorable too. And then with Kaiba, in his virtual duel with Atem, the whole banter between them, I've been waiting for this for a long time. Pharaoh, of course. Even just the opening shot of this movie of a stoic Kaiba standing there completely still, staring at the puzzle. Good God, he's on another level in this movie. There were just certain parts where I was like, oh shit, okay, look at you, Kaiba. One part I found extremely hot was when he just comes blasting through on his fucking dragon jet, because of course he would do something like that. And then he just jumps out of the flying jet and lands gracefully on the ground perfectly, because again, of course. And Mokuba just says, hey bro. Clearly he's used to shit like that from his brother. His impatience knows no bounds when his own technology trying to build the puzzle, and he just says, stop talking, just build the puzzle, that's it. Unbelievable. My goodness gracious, that was crazy. And Joey was great too. I love Joey too, which, as I mentioned when I discussed Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series way back in episode 42, I have a distant connection with the voice actor, Wayne Grayson, because his mom was my Spanish teacher from kindergarten through 8th grade. I remember her telling us in Spanish that her son is the voice of Joey Wheeler, and she was so proud and excited. So if I ever meet him, on the off chance I ever meet him someday, I could tell him, hey, your mom taught me Spanish. So, and since I'm speaking of the voice actors too, Dan Green just seems like an incredible human being. Just gotta say that. Tara Sands too, Mokuba, and also Greg Abbey as Tristan, and Amy Birnbaum as Taya, and obviously Eric Stewart as the Seto Kaiba. Joey, though, is honestly a sweetheart. I really love Joey, too. He's probably my second favorite. Because I like all of his bumbling, dumb stuff when he falls in this movie and he says, oh, I meant to do that. Oh, God. And I'm not even going to pretend I fully understand the whole backstory of Aigami. I sort of get it, whatever, the Plana. And he has his sister, Sarah, and that guy, Manny. Kind of reminded me of Odeon Marek, the Shizu situation a little bit. I don't fully understand it, and I'm not going to pretend I understand it, but it was interesting, I guess, to say the least. And then that was, I guess, an 8th millennium item, the cube. But again, that was an interesting concept to me, too, of how them being part of this whole other dimension, of course, to go back to the title of the movie. But with Kaiba and Atem dueling, I liked that whole scene because first off, the setting of it, with those stained glass windows, it kind of seemed like a church. I found that interesting. And when Hologram Atem says to Kaiba, I see you're as cocky as ever, and he says, so you've come here to duel me? And Kaiba says, well, I didn't come here to dance with you. Now there's an image I'd like to see. And then after the duel, when he insults his employees, calling them sniveling sycophants, and he crushes the water bottle, that was great. Him saying, fire whoever made that water bottle, they shouldn't be that flimsy. He's just not messing around. It's just, oh my god. And then, of course, there's also that amazing line, which I knew about this line too going into this. Basically, this whole scene I already knew about because it's iconic, him crushing the water bottle. But when he says, it's true, I went through a great deal of trouble to recreate the Pharaoh's deck, his strategies, even his perfectly coiffed hair. In fact, that part is what took the longest. I mean, I know that is supposed to be a funny line, and it is, especially because he says it so seriously. But when he says things like that, to me, it just makes me think, how could anyone not think Kaiba is in love with Atem? Oh my god. And also that pan up, the slow pan up, just seeing his abs, I can't. Oh my god, I don't mean to keep thirsting after Kaiba, but I can't help it. Oh my goodness. And on the flip side of that, so it's kind of like we had an A, B, and C story. That was the A story. B story was the whole thing with Aigami. And then C story was kind of Yugi with his friends doing regular teenage things. And that one scene with Duke Devlin was great. I mean, so that's part of why I was distracted too, to be perfectly honest, besides Kaiba, was legitimately, at least for the first half of the movie, was just kind of the lighter parts of it. Where I was thinking in my head how I just can't wait to see little Karibo do the abridged version of this movie someday, just thinking about the kind of stuff he would do with this, because we got Joey in a dog suit yet again. Sends me reeling, I can't. So I just absolutely love the abridged series, obviously. That's what I personally grew up with. I've been watching that since the beginning, since '06, so that's like my personal nostalgia for this show, for these characters. So it's just so funny, but I do have such a newfound deep appreciation for the actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Fandom, and these characters are just excellent. But it's great seeing Bakura too, and how he's no longer possessed by the damn Millennium Ring. So that's something I actually didn't know, though, that after, apparently, at the end of the series, when Atem left, all of the Millennium items went along with him. So I guess they were just all in that tomb or whatever. So then the first duel of the movie with, well, I guess not counting the virtual duel with Kaiba and Atem, but the actual first duel of the movie with Kaiba and Aigami. And how was Kaiba able to summon Obelisk? First when he did that, I was like, oh wait, shit, is that Exodia? How is that possible? No. But that's what I first thought. But no, it was Obelisk. And it's just epic, though, how he just slams his hand down to the ground and summons Obelisk. He's not a card, he's an Egyptian god. Amazing. It was also amazing, of course, when Aigami was going to take his soul, I guess, into that dark dimension. And of course, Kaiba stands there all calmly, doesn't even flinch, and it's just a whole big nope, not fucking happening. I just really get a kick out of Kaiba and all of his badassness. It was really cool just seeing, honestly, also the updated looks of the cards. I thought the details of that were really beautiful, and the updated puzzle box was absolutely beautiful, the glowing with that, and the puzzle piece. And I also really love how this movie highlights the fact that Yugi and Atem really are, to some degree, soulmates. I know there's two separate people, but because Yugi technically is a reincarnation of Atem, so it's as if they just have this forever bond with one another, this destiny with each other. And as Kaiba says toward the end of the movie, you have your bond with them, I have mine. Because as we know from the show, Kaiba, he was priest Seto in ancient Egypt with the pharaoh Atem, so it's his destiny to just duel Atem for all of eternity. It's so fascinating too. So in a way, they're soulmates too. And I did say this when I discussed Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge, that my ship, now I know the ship name, it's pride shipping. I'm all for pride shipping Kaiba and Atem. But, I could see the appeal of other ships too. But legitimately, another thing I want to say about Kaiba, though, I might do an episode just about the show itself, but I just gotta finish watching it first, so stay tuned for that possibly. But for now, what I'll say, what I love about Kaiba, what struck me when I just jumped into season 3, it was just so jarring at first getting used to not the abridged and just their real show. But legitimately, one thing I love about Kaiba too, which, so many things of course, but I love how he speaks in a way deliberately where he wants people to know that every single thing he says is important. Just everything's about him. His arrogance too knows no bounds. It's unbelievable. And that thing that Aigami said too was actually interesting to me when he said how you just want to control everyone, Seto Kaiba, whether they are a consumer or your employee. That's him just kind of, in a way, wanting to dominate everything. It is interesting with his super new dual disc in this. And so the whole thing then when Aigami sends Joey to the Plana, I kind of wish that was explored more. That to me, again, could seem like its own arc within if they had done a season. I just think that was interesting. His memories, so with his memories wiping away, then he's fading away. I just found that to be an interesting concept as well. But then it made me think, why is he running? Why isn't he just trying to remember his friends then, or remember Atem, remember his sister Serenity, So I couldn't help myself. Or Mai. Whatever happened to Mai, by the way? Or, Pegasus, too, for that matter. A lot of characters just not even mentioned, but I get it, just for the sake of this plot. But, so, that, too, gave me chills, honestly, just that it was Atem who saved Joey. So, because, of course, even though Atem is gone, he's not really gone. He's just in a new dimension. So that was almost a touching moment to me. And then you could tell Joey was about to tell him, it's Yugi, I just want to say thanks. And Yugi's oh, okay. Yugi's so adorable too, I just have to say, especially in the show, but in the movie too. Even though he's grown now, he's still really adorable. I do like the Yugi Taya. Are they? I wish they were a couple officially, but it doesn't seem like they are. It just seems like they're friends still. Come on. I think they were a couple. That's my headcanon, that they're a couple now, whatever. But, so they were cute too. Even in the beginning when Yugi's oh no, grandpa, that's what kids do, walk with their friends to school. And then Taya was there, wait. That was so cute. Oh, sorry, I kept you waiting. That was cute. Little flirty moments, a little bit here and there. But also, I just love the part when all of a sudden it starts downpouring and Yugi is running and he just stops and he says, my cardio stinks. That was just funny to me. The part when then Seto Kaiba shows up, standing in the middle of the intersection in the pouring rain, just stopping all of traffic, standing there with his arms folded, looking like a total snack. That was hot too. Oh my god. And then when he just kidnapped Aigami, again, relentless Kaiba, watch your fucking back, people. He's on a mission. So that was great too, his mini tournament, where you got Aigami, Yugi, and Kaiba, because they each have another piece of the puzzle. It just was funny too, they have their little mouthpieces to do the dueling. I do also really love how we see this in the show too, that really the only people who could ever really get through to Kaiba, just make him see beyond his own egotistical ways that he's the greatest supreme duelist, which of course he is. So, that he's so obsessed with defeating Atem. Oh, by the way, side note, why is he so obsessed with defeating Atem? Just, that's it, just only motivation is that he's obsessed with just wanting to defeat him to get his glory back, and so he can humiliate him, and as he says, the scars of his defeat are still burning. That's, wow, I guess that's about it. Again, with his ego, he just needs to be the best at everything. So, as I was saying though, I like how, as I was seeing the show, that besides Mokuba, the only person who could really get through to Kaiba, make him see something from someone else's perspective truly that doesn't just necessarily benefit himself, the only other person who could do that is Yugi. and I guess Atem too, but we see that in this movie too when Yugi's like, no, Kaiba, I'm dueling him first. Is that a threat? And Yugi responds all calm and casually, sure, why not? I loved that too, just, sure, Kaiba, if that makes you happy, then yeah, that's a threat. That was just great. So then when Yugi and Yugi and Aigami duel, and then Yugi and Kaiba, and I love when Kaiba and Yugi team up, or Kaiba and Atem, really, in the anime. So that was just fantastic to me. And then when he's just like, no, that's not gonna happen. Wait, are you saying so? And then they're just dueling together. And again, just not being used to the pacing, how it's like, okay, this card game's done, now on to the next one. Whereas in the show, this could just drag on for multiple episodes. So, and it's just so funny, all those people watching, clearly not knowing what the hell is going on. But they're just enjoying the show, I guess, enjoying the duels. So then with that shape-shifting Aigami and how he's this weird monster thing now, and Kaiba kind of sacrificed himself for Yugi, I really liked that, but then again, of course, to his own, the real reason, because he wants to battle Atem, he wants to see Atem. And that was great too, the part when he's like, he's gone, Kaiba, you have to accept that. Because Yugi has accepted the loss. Kaiba obviously hasn't, but he doesn't have the same bonds with Atem that Yugi does. But that was a touching moment, and it was interesting too, seeing Kaiba genuinely trembling. His hand, like, he was so visibly angry, like so impassioned, I guess, in that moment, that his hand was trembling. The look on his face then, he was just unaccepting of that. That was fascinating. All the moments throughout the show, too, when Kaiba is just thrown for a second, like genuinely caught off guard. I love stuff like that. Because for the most part, he just has that intensity, that I don't give a fuck attitude, his ruthless insults. It's just so hilarious. My God. But again, the moments where he's true motivation that we see throughout the show, like when he duels for Mokuba. With this, though, that's something I missed too, that in this movie, there wasn't enough for me. There wasn't enough interaction between Kaiba and Mokuba, enough of that brotherly bonds that I love, like, because in the show it's just clearly it's them against the world, they're a team. That's just very sweet, you know, that deep down, that what Kaiba cares about the most besides himself, you know, is his brother, that he would do anything for his brother. But in this movie, it's just, Mokuba's like, oh, don't worry, big bro, like, whatever, him talking to him, and he's just like, oh no, Yuki's almost done for, or whatever, and then Kaiba just doesn't say anything. He's just standing there, icing out his brother, like giving him the silent treatment or something. It's just hilarious. But besides a couple lines of dialogue that he says to him, but still he's just so hell-bent, focused on the pharaoh, that we don't really see any of that. So that's something that I personally was missing, because I just love those moments that kind of, again, show the very, very minuscule, soft side to Kaiba. But I did also love when he shows up on the helicopter, and then he's like, oh, hey, Yugi, looking good, long time no see. But it was a really chilling moment. I was almost choked up when Yugi said, of course, the classic, I'll never stop believing in the heart of, and like he's about to pass out or whatever, cards. And when they're like fading away, and you see the red, is that supposed to be their blood, by the way? I mean, that seems a bit dark. Whatever, so Kaiba sacrificed himself, and then when Atem shows up, that was so beautiful. And I was kind of waiting for Atem to say something, but then obviously it's just perfect that they didn't say anything at all. They just were staring at one another, and just that bond, you know how much they care for one another, and that was just truly beautiful, honestly. That little reunion between them. Nothing needs to be said. And the graduation, that was cute. So that too, I was like, okay, they're seeing Taya off. That was cute. But can we get something? Like, you know, besides high fives, can we get like a hug? That's just me. I prefer like sweet character moments and things like that. I think honestly, Kaiba and Mokuba, that's my favorite relationship on this show. But second is definitely Yugi and Atem, because that's really the heart of this show, the heart of the cards. But also Yugi, Tristan, Joey, and Taya, that's very sweet too. And Kaiba and Yugi. Also, just on a side note, I love anytime Kaiba says Yugi in his gruff voice with that spark of intrigue. I love that. I love in the show anytime Atem says Kaiba in his deep, manly, like threatening voice. I love all that. So then just the final moments in this movie, then after they graduate, that's really sweet and heartwarming and lovely. And just Yugi kind of just at peace, and again, like, accepting that he got to see the pharaoh briefly and that they're always connected. I loved that too. And then the ending too was just really, it was kind of devastating in a way, but you know that Seto Kaiba, nothing will ever truly destroy him. He's indestructible, as we all know. But when he's going to go see the pharaoh and Mokuba says, "Big brother, promise me you'll come back," and Kaiba says, "You're in charge now, Mokuba." Oh, no, can you at least tell your brother that you're going to be okay and that you will come back? But, aw. And also, they didn't have their little, it's my headcanon, they have it under their clothes now, their little cards with each other's pictures in them. I love that too. I think that's so adorable. Oh, and also, quick side note, the fact that Kaiba has an elevator that can just go to outer space. What the fuck? That's amazing. I can't believe I forgot to bring that up. That is next level. Holy shit. But anyway, so the final moments of this movie with Kaiba walking through the desert, and then he comes face to face with Atem, and the look on both of their faces, Kaiba with his ferocity, just activating his dual disc, and Atem as if knowing that Kaiba was going to show up at some point, as if he'd been expecting him. And again, nothing needed to be said, but you just know it's time to duel. And so even with that ending, though, personally it left me wanting more. I kind of wanted to see them duel, but with this ending, it is implied that Kaiba and Atem are just going to be dueling for all of eternity in the afterlife. And I don't necessarily want to entertain this thought too much, but let's say hypothetically that Kaiba is just forever in the afterlife now, but personally, I think he could somehow come back because he's Seto Kaiba. He just can do that because he can travel different dimensions. And in this movie, he did technically disappear into the Plana and then he came back. So, somehow, anyway. But say that that is the case, that we're left to believe, really, with the end of this movie. So if that's the case, that means Mokuba is now in charge of Kaiba Corp. So to me, that really is a turning point for his character, where then, without his brother, where he really has nothing, no family at all, and I guess that means technically Kaiba is probably his legal guardian. But anyway, so with him alone now, I really think he would just get increasingly jaded the older he gets, to the point where I think he would be even more sinister and controlling than Kaiba is. I just think that's an interesting thing to think about, though. Even though Mokuba's an absolute sweetheart and he's so adorable, even as this mini business mogul Mokuba in this movie, but oh, poor Mokuba. No, I can't imagine Kaiba abandoning his brother. I just refuse to accept that. After Kaiba is done dueling / fucking Atem in the afterlife, then he can return. That's my headcanon. That's what I just want to believe. So I'm gonna go with that. And also, in regard to Kaiba and Atem, in that sense of them dueling for all of eternity and forever opponents, that in a way they really are soulmates. So I personally find that oddly sweet and beautiful. And to that point, I've seen some truly beautiful fan art. And there's one artist, I reached out to her on Twitter, so she knows I'm giving her a shout out. Her name is Ellen Chain. You can check out her artwork at ellenchain.com. That's ELLENCHAIN.com. And she is an artist and novelist from Germany. She creates mangas and illustrations, so a lot of really amazing stuff. And she has a lot of artwork for Yu-Gi-Oh! As well. And there's one picture in particular that I'm just personally so in awe of. I can't do it justice describing it to you, but if you've seen it, just you already know. But if you haven't, definitely go check it out. It's this beautiful picture of Kaiba and Atem kissing, and just the lighting of it is absolutely gorgeous, and just, oh my goodness, it's absolutely beautiful. So that's my headcanon, that, they're just gonna make out first, then they can duel. So many lovely pride shipping drawings. There's one of Kaiba shirtless. Oh, and she drew the card. Oh, okay, that's perfect. The beautiful picture. The card locket with Mokuba's picture. So cute. So, he's got Mokuba with him too. Oh my goodness, the smoldering look. The detail of it. Just looking through all of this. Lots of other Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters too. We've got some thief shipping going on with American Bakura. Beautiful drawings. So shout out to Ellen Chain. Something else I wanted to bring up about the voice actors, that the English dub voice actors did a reunion panel back in October, actually. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Just for me, as a fan of learning about the process of voice acting in particular, I just found it so fun and interesting. So it was a reunion of Eric Stewart, Dan Green, Wayne Grayson, Greg Abbey, Amy Birnbaum, and also Darren Dunstan, the voice of Pegasus. So it was really cool. They just talked about their process of voicing the characters, as well as their memories of recording for the show. So definitely check those videos out too if you're interested. Also, a fun fact, if you didn't know this, Eric Stewart was actually also the voice director for the series. He actually was the voice director first, and then he was cast last as Kaiba. There's all fun stories about it, which I found really fun and interesting. And so I wonder how that is to voice direct yourself, though. I wonder how that works. You kind of just say in your head, okay, let me try this louder, let me try this. I wonder that. Man, I'd love to talk to him someday. I would love that for this podcast. I'm putting that out there in the universe. Hope to get one of these. That'd be amazing. Oh man, I'd love to talk to a voice actor. I haven't done that yet on this podcast, so I'd love to do that. But again, I'll just say overall, I love the characters on this show. Again, at some point I would love to talk about this show in general, because I do love the themes of friendship and believing in yourself even with the odds against you, all that kind of stuff, all the positivity to it. So I really appreciate all of that stuff as well. But for now, I'll simply say Seto Kaiba is the fucking best. And with that, that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Be sure to check out storytellingsaga.com for all places to listen and where to follow on social media. And feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by emailing me at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, I'll be talking about cliffhangers. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love. And also remember to always believe in the heart of the cards.